What you can do with $100 billion. Check this MSN Money article out. A $100 billion Chinese check that the U.S. may need to match is the title. And it is regarding China's move to revitalize the ancient Silk Road trade route. And its plan runs through a nation that has bedeviled both the U.S. and Russia for decades, Afghanistan. What is the Silk Road trade route? It was this route from east to west, from China through the Middle East, passing through Afghanistan, Persia, long before Iraq was called Iraq. These areas in the Middle East, Assyria, which is now Syria, Israel, and taking sea routes to Rome, Athens, or up the Danube and the Rhine rivers into Europe. What's this article talking about? Well, I'm a student of history. I kind of like anything about history, and Silk Road caught my attention. So it's talking about the plan for China to invest a lot of money to get trading partnerships established at the same time as the U.S. is withdrawing its forces and trying to figure out what it spent all that money on, invading, destroying, rebuilding, whatever it did in the country, and what did it get for it. So the article likes to paint the picture like China's ambitions are now plowing right over the U.S. plan. Well, folks, open your eyes and take some notice of what the U.S. plan includes, because one of those is wasting tons and tons of your tax dollars doing nothing, going nowhere, paying off bribes and in corruption, building idiotic projects for stupid amounts of money that are entirely wasted. Case in point, a fuel station, a gas station that was built in Afghanistan by the United States. The money went straight to corrupt contractors by a corrupt government with no bid, and completely wasted $43 million on a gas station that should have cost $500,000. Watch this brief 1-minute video and see for yourself. And if you're not outraged, then clearly you don't care how the U.S. government is wasting your money.
They don't call it the world's most expensive gas station for nothing. 43 million U.S. taxpayer dollars spent on a remote highway stop that should have cost no more than $500,000. The idea? Afghanistan has lots of natural gas reserves, so to become less dependent on costly foreign oil imports, build the country's first compressed natural gas station and then convert cars to run on the fuel. But it costs $700 to switch over a car to natural gas, more than the average Afghan makes in a year.
This is simply misuse of taxpayers' money. All of this would suggest that there's possible fraud involved, and fraud ought to be prosecuted.
Going to be a lot of anger about this. Martha with us live now. And tonight, Martha, the Pentagon isn't offering any answers why so much money was misspent.
That's right, David. The Pentagon is cooperating, but they have no explanation so far, and we won't get one soon since the group behind the project closed shop 6 months ago, David.
Closed shop. Martha Raddatz with us live from Washington. Martha, thank you.
Now the article continues on, talking about how China's initiative is to get the economic belt revived and a land network connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa. There's a maritime route as an economic passageway. It runs running through the Pacific and Indian Oceans, and together the two amount to a set of free trade agreements and infrastructure projects that reach 4.4 billion people, or 63% of the world's population. That's a pretty good free trade setup to try and improve and invest in, as long as everyone is benefiting from it and no one is taking advantage of some agreement. Like the United States specializes in agreements that benefit corporations and doesn't really care about people. China is willing to spend heavily to promote the plan. Well, what has the United States spent heavily doing? Well, let's look up something. How about some facts and figures? This is from a government Congressional Research Service document as of December 8th, 2014. The Congress has approved appropriations for 1.6 trillion total that it distributed as follows: 686 billion in Afghanistan, 815 billion in Iraq, 27 billion enhanced security at all military bases, and 81 billion for war designated funding not considered directly related to the Afghanistan or Iraq wars. Where does all this money go? They're not going to give you an accounting, I can assure you that. How do I know? Well, do you remember before 9/11, the Pentagon admitting they couldn't account for 4-point-something trillion dollars of spending? 4-point-some trillion, and they didn't know what they spent it on? Well, it's a good thing that whatever hit the Pentagon destroyed those records, isn't it? Here you go. Here's what the U.S. has spent, according to this. And you know we've spent far more than that, because this is what the Senate appropriated. Since when do we stay within a budget? Never. 686 billion as a base mark figure. Yeah, well, what did we get for it? A $43 million gas station that should have cost 500 grand. That's one thing. But what we really got for it is what I encountered when I scrolled down and read through this article, which I encourage you to do, as I will go back up and let you see the title again on MSN Money. It is a 100 billion Chinese check U.S. may need to match. Read it for yourself and see what you think. They're talking about the rare earth minerals that are there in Afghanistan, which we covet. And we say, well, it would be too bad if China ended up with all these rare earth minerals after we spent billions, hundreds of billions, perhaps into the trillions, destroying the country, trying to give our corporations first grab at it. Be a shame if we wasted all that money and then didn't get to go in and loot and plunder, with the World Bank and the IMF leading the way, sinking the country into debt so that they can do their usual raid of looting. So they talk about the rare earth minerals and what they thought they'd be worth. And it says, it's not clear at this point if the U.S. government will continue to push an alternative plan for Afghanistan, or if it is prepared to spend as much as China. Well, as I've just pointed out, we've spent far, far more than a $100 billion Chinese investment. What did we get out of it? This picture. Opium fields, opium poppies, the heroin trade at record levels. Don't believe me? Look at the chart. There's 2001. The attacks of 9/11 took place late in 2001. The Taliban controlled Afghanistan in this whole period. Yep, there was opium production then, but in the last year of the Taliban, they had almost eradicated it completely. We invade? Wham! Opium production not just restored, but climbing to record levels. And this chart ends at 2013. We're about to hit 2016. Where is it now? Up here somewhere? This chart doesn't tell us. Tiny little eradication statistics in the blue is supposed to be eradication, and the beige is cultivation. Well, I'm going to guess, this is just my speculation, but I bet some of these eradication programs, if we went in and actually destroyed any opium poppies, rather than guarding them like our troops appear to be doing. These are Australians. Here's more Americans. There are tons of pictures on the internet depicting American troops surrounded by opium poppies. If those pallet loads of cash that disappeared into Afghanistan with no accounting, and the Pentagon has no idea what they were spent on, were actually to be accounted for, I guarantee huge amounts of them went to pay off warlords who own and control these poppy fields. And if we burned any of them, we paid the warlord reparations because we messed up his opium crop. That is how my faith in the U.S. government has turned my opinion that we can't trust them to spend a dime, let alone trillions, to make sure those opium poppies and the production has ramped back up to historic high levels. The heroin addiction and the huge spike in overdoses and incidences of heroin use has become epidemic in Europe and the United States. This is why the United States is protecting, up until the point wherever we may have pulled out some, we're never leaving this country behind. The CIA loves drug money. Look at this. It just makes me sick to see this. Look at the look on this soldier's face. How disgusted he looks. He knows he's walking through heroin and he can't do a thing about it because we want to be buddies with the warlords who grow this stuff. We don't want to stop it. Hell no. These criminals, war criminal number one, hands off the ball to the next war criminal in line, the parade of troops right through the opium poppies so the CIA, Air America, can keep funding their black ops. I know it's somebody's created artwork and it's got plenty of symbols in it. The message is pretty straightforward and you have a hard time arguing against it when you see these kind of photos. Our troops guarding field after field of opium poppies. Continuing with the article, if you want to read the rest of it, it talks about the Silk Road in general and China's institution of their own banking system that will help them get out from under the domination by the Western-controlled Federal Reserve System and the SWIFT payment system, which requires U.S. dollars. Here's what Alan Guglietti, Senior Diplomatic Advisor at the Geneva Center for Security Policy, says, that the emergence of structures like the Asian Infrastructure Bank indicate that the era of the U.S. as a lone actor shaping the world is over. Well, I might say, I'll add my opinion to that statement that the U.S. has been a unilateral bully, forcing others who did not want to be in their system and did not profit from it, who were exploited by it. Our position as being the bully on the block damn well should be over. And I, as a citizen of this country, deplore the actions of our government in other areas of the world that they have utterly destroyed or brutalized. So anyway, read the article. The fact that they're talking about the Silk Road investment of the Chinese is interesting enough in and of itself, but the underlying truth of it all is what just gets to me, that this Silk Road project that the article is talking about, that's it from the Hand of God. Sharpen up a pitchfork.